Splatterhouse 2 is the Sega Genesis sequel to the 1988 slasher arcade game Splatterhouse, claimed to be the first ever ultra-violent video game. It certainly lives up to its title of being ultra-violent, but is it a good horror game? Atmosphere. As far as games from this era go, Atmosphere is pretty much encapsulated in its art style and soundtrack. There's a feeling of dread and decay in Splatterhouse 2 as you walk through the nightmarish mansion. This doesn't have an incredible atmosphere that holds up on its own though, but its atmosphere is still present thanks to the rest of the game's presentation, so that's one Harry Mason. Scares. Besides the occasional sudden enemy appearing and the surprise of a random enemy howl, it's not very scary at all. Being a side-scrolling game, there's always the dread of what's coming up ahead as the screen scrolls, but other than that, the game isn't very scary, so that's still one Harry Mason. Sound design. The music in Splatterhouse 2 was produced by the Sega Genesis. The gritty, dirty sound of the Genesis hardware makes the already menacing soundtrack hit even harder. As for the sound effects, the sound of howls and screams coming out of that same hardware is just plain unnatural. So that's two Harry Masons. Gore. This game is all about it. It's rancid and disgusting, punching enemies for their stomachs to explode, splattering enemies against the wall. It's straight up gruesome, and I personally love the 16-bit sprites. It's over the top in a realm of its own for its time. Splatterhouse 2 delivers that foul, gory vibe in bucket loads. So that's three Harry Masons. Story. In the original Splatterhouse, Rick and his girlfriend Jennifer take refuge from a storm in the West Mansion called the Splatterhouse by the locals. Unsurprisingly, horror befalls them. They are experimented on and consumed by the supposed living house. Jennifer is turned into a mutation and Rick is left in the basement with an ancient mask that joins with his face and changes him into a monster. With his new powers, he defeats his mutated girlfriend to save her and escapes the mansion. In the sequel, he picks up the mask again and returns to that same mansion, hoping to save her soul. It's a weak plot, and the reasoning makes the mindless violence the main reason to play the game, but as far as the Genesis games of this style go, this wasn't going to be novel-worthy anyway, making the final score 3 out of 5 Harry Masons. You have to consider the game's age. It's the goriest beat-em-up game of its time. Nowadays, it reminds me of the Saw franchise. Gore because gore, with little to no reason needed for it to exist. The gameplay is mindless and violent, and the gory nature of the game overshadows its weaker parts, at least for me. It's not a great game, but if you want some old-fashioned 16-bit gore, then look no further. Again, I'd like to remind you the whole thing is down to my opinion in horror games, and if you don't share this opinion, then that's cool, I get it. I'd like to point out that whilst I did laugh maniacally smashing enemies was a bone club, I did not scream like a banshee or run away from the computer, and I advise you don't either. There'll be more horror reviews in the pipeline, and thanks for watching, and always go check out Bumps in the Middle of the Night. Peace.